Electricity is known as one of the key drivers of social and economic development. In order to utilize this resource to enhance development in rural locations, Zambia decided to embark on a rural electrification program around the year 2008. It's close to 10 years since the project commenced. Today on News in Depth, we assess whether significant progress has been made in the achievement of 51% access to electricity for those living in rural locations. I am your presenter for this week's News in Depth program. My name is Pennipher. At the age of 14, Harriet Mutale has big dreams. She wants to become a doctor when done with secondary education. Despite learning in a rural area, Harriet is certain that her dream will be a reality because she has an opportunity to broaden her knowledge in the age of information and communication technology, ICT.
It feels nice to use a computer because you may know a lot of things, how to operate, how to type, and other things. It feels very good because we can able to know other things, like we come here in the evenings to study, and then if we don't know anything about it, we ask our teachers, they may tell us.
Harriet is in grade 8 at Kawangalala Primary School in Situmbeko area, located about 70 kilometers west of the Zambian capital city, Lusaka. Her community has benefited from the National Electrification Program targeting rural areas, which has been implemented since the year 2008. Overseeing the implementation of the Rural Electrification Agenda is the Rural Electrification Authority, REA. The setting up of the authority had specific targets.
The entry in terms of access to electricity then was 3%. When REA was created, it was given one major mandate. And that mandate was to increase electricity or access to electricity by rural populations from 3% then to 51% by 2030.
Prior to the commencement of the rural electrification projects around the country, a master plan had to be crafted to guide the process. In the master plan, about 2,200 sites classified as rural growth centers were shortlisted for electrification for the period 2008 to 2030, using various technological options. The molding of the plan had technical assistance from the Japanese government. The 2,200 sites in need of electrification identified in the master plan established the fact that most rural households in Zambia were desperately in need of power supply. The Rural Electrification Authority confirms that few public facilities and households had access to electricity by the year 2003 in rural areas.
We're talking about Zambia. Most of the areas in Zambia are classified actually as rural areas. So the vast majority of the people of Zambia actually live in rural areas. So if you look at the targets that were set, you will find that our benchmark is actually the access to electricity in rural areas. And we were given then, as we are given now, three main technologies as listed in the master plan that we are undertaking, that we are using to electrify these rural areas.
The significance of electrifying rural areas is a concept appreciated by the Ministry of Health.
For us in the health sector, we are not looking at one component. We have to look at the various components which trigger quality healthcare services. So the Rural Electrification Program fits in very well, not only in the health sector agenda, but the overall government agenda of improving public services to our people.
Salim Kaunda heads monitoring and evaluation at PMRC and feels that electricity is a major driver of economic and social transformation of rural locations.
The availability of electricity in those areas is putting about a fertile ground for attracting investments, because you can imagine an investor wants to come and set up maybe an industry in the rural area. If there isn't any electricity there, it might be very difficult, because then maybe the project would not work. So we understand that even as electricity goes to those areas, it's setting a fertile ground where we can now promote investments, where we can now encourage agro-processing, where we can now encourage the use of simple mechanisms, where we can grow the ICT subsector.
Electricity is a commodity known to break the cycle of isolation, in the words of Angel Chelwa, country lead at M-Pharma, a company involved in the supply of medicines to health facilities around Zambia.
I think it's an extremely powerful tool for development, having electricity or access to electricity, just because it breaks the cycle of isolation. When you have electricity, you can listen to the radio, you can listen to advice about going to take your children for vaccinations, but then even just at a health facility, from a health facility point of view, I think these places are now able to do certain tests that they weren't able to do, diagnostic tests. They're able to store their drugs in better conditions, and that in turn ensures that the communities that have now got access to electricity can become stronger and more productive without being affected by disease and things like that.
4 principal methods of electrification have been adopted since the program commenced. They are broken down as solar energy, mini hydropower station, biomass generation, and grid extensions, which result in the extension of the national grid managed by ZESCO. At the commencement of the electrification program for rural areas, certain components were experimental. This is in view of the high number of grass-thatched houses found in rural Zambia. Eventually, the concept worked.
Our people continue having traditional houses until obvious over a period of time. Now, from the provision of services, if you want to isolate people because of the nature of the houses that they have, then you leave them behind in terms of service provision. So because of this experiment, which has proven that it can work, in next year's program, which we are beginning, we are going to rectify, as part of next year, because we are starting a project next year to cover up to 2021. So in each province, we are going to rectify at least a village which is densely populated. So we should at least have a village in one or each of the provinces that is going to be rectified with grass-thatched houses.
Kabangalala is one of hundreds of rural communities that have seen light at the end of the tunnel in literal sense, considering that the provision of electricity was a mere fantasy for some of these residents. Abishai Machaya is the deputy head teacher at Kabangalala Primary School. He has been teaching at the school for 15 years. Mr. Machaya has seen the transformative influence of electricity on the learners and teachers at this school since the completion of the electrification project in 2015.
The performance of the children has really improved because we even have the evening classes where pupils come back. They do the reading, studying at night, and the teachers do volunteer to come and help the learners. So that really has helped to improve the performance of the school. Yes, and like what used to happen in the past where we had no electricity.
Interestingly, the school is now on demand from other pupils and teachers in nearby villages.
We are receiving transfers nearly every day. People coming from other schools where there is no power. So they come and they learn from our school. There are a lot of teachers who would like to come to this school. The only challenge is that the infrastructure, we have no accommodation. Otherwise, if accommodation was there, a lot of teachers could have come. So we are now really wanting to engage the community so that we build more houses, so that the issue of understaffing should come to an end.
Enrollment and performance of pupils is said to have significantly improved at the school. The story of improved education standards is not limited to Kabangalala area in this part of Zambia. A few kilometers from here is Chalabana Primary School, where enrollment and performance has equally been reported to have improved, as well as ICT lessons now being conducted with ease.
The coming of electricity direct to the school, it attracted the attention of those pupils who have been not into the school system. They have come on board just to see that there is power at our school. And besides that, the type of energy which they only knew here around this community is the solar energy. So when they saw the power line coming to this school, to them it was an advantage and an achievement. Since our school runs from grade 1 up to 7, there's technology studies where we are able to teach our pupils things to do with a computer. So our pupils are able to at least know what a computer is, because they have hands-on on the computer.
At Chalabana, we met Pennipher, who has had an opportunity to use a tablet containing the Zambian curriculum, thereby allowing him to closely follow lessons taught by his teachers each week. Previously, this was not possible because his school and home had no electricity.
Power has helped me to study on this tablet. Yes, I can show you how it works. It helps me very much. When I'm at home, when the power of this same tablet the battery gets low, I charge it with the power which you have helped us.
Kumbukani says electricity has had a positive effect on his education.
When I finish watching news, when everybody goes to sleep, that's the time which I become free. That's the time which I study.
Beyond electricity benefiting the pupils, the school administrators at both Kalangalala and Chalabana affirm that their teachers are not thinking of working anywhere else. In addition to undertaking more ICT lessons in a more efficient manner, Chalabana Primary School has decided to start evening literacy classes, which will benefit the elderly members of the community.
We have a class that we are trying to come up with for the elderly people so that they can benefit through the evening classes, whereby we will just teach them the basics on how to know how to read and write. It is a service that we are going to provide as members of staff here. Since a long time ago, you cannot teach them in the dark because during normal working hours, the classes are occupied by the learners.
The school head teachers at the two institutions have confessed personal benefits of being in an electrified location. This is why it is not surprising to hear them say that they don't want to be transferred to any other schools.
We used to have problems with our phones. You can charge your phone today, the other day the power is off. Then charging was a problem. And in fact, there are so many benefits. We are able to drink cold water. We are able to cook on the stove. Maybe if they can leave me for about the next 2-3 years so that I really enjoy.
There are a lot of changes that has happened in my life in terms of communication, in terms of being updated with the current affairs and a lot of things pertaining to my life, because the coming of power to me, it has transformed even my my outlook.
The impact electricity has had on access to education and other social benefits cheers observers.
So where electricity has been provided, there's a change in those communities or in those areas, because teachers want to stay in those areas. If you look at the health sector, there's this whole change, a whole shift in terms of service delivery.
Pupils are now able to read at night. Schools are now able to have computers to teach those pupils. Hospitals now, some hospitals are even able to perform certain procedures that require electricity that they could not perform before. So the benefits are quite visible, and we've been able to see that.
It has been close to a decade since the Rural Electrification program began in Zambia. Has there been much progress recorded in the lighting up of rural areas?
Right now, the indicative statistics are such that we are averaging 5.5% in terms of both solar and grid extension. You will find some data indicating an excess of somewhere around maybe 4.5% for grid extension and somewhere around 7% for solar.
A total of $1.1 billion, equivalent to $50 million annually, is the money recommended for achieving Rural Electrification Master Plan, targeted at increasing rural electricity access rate from 3.1% in 2006 to 51% by 2030. Nearly 10 years down the line, inadequate funding seems to stand out as a major hindrance to the quick accomplishment of electrification in most Zambian rural areas.
Given the fact that the master plan prescribes a cost of $50 million per year to be used per year for us to undertake all those projects as outlined in the master plan. But obviously, Pennipher, we don't receive that amount of money on an annual basis. Government is the major funder of rural electrification, and almost all the resources come from government through the national budget, which is appropriated by Parliament to us.
Limited funding to RIA is a matter of concern for the PMRC.
RIA needs to be helped much more than it is. We know that some cooperating partners have come on board, but I think we can call for more partners to actually come and work with RIA. We also understand that other countries within the region have similar mechanisms of rural electrification authorities that also do what they have to take electricity to the rural areas.
A new approach has been deployed in mobilizing resources.
We've started looking at developing business models, especially for infrastructure where private sector can participate. For instance, the isolated solar mini grids that we are developing, the isolated mini hydropower stations that we are operating, can those be operated by the private sector?
Mr. Kaunda is calling for more partners to support the electrification of rural areas, a suggestion supported by the Ministry of Health. Permanent Secretary in charge of administration at the ministry, Kennedy Malama, attests that healthcare service delivery has significantly improved in rural health facilities that have been electrified.
This rural electrification program is spot on. It's actually improving the way we do business as a health sector. And we are also seeing even in surrounding communities. And also, some of the times why we close these facilities early when it's dark, it's because, I mean, you can't do much. You can't write if you don't have solar or any form of power. But now when you are connected to the grid, it means we are now even moving to opening 24 hours as we increase staffing in these facilities.
Dr. Malama's remarks affirm our findings at Kawangalala Rural Health Center, which is 5 minutes away from Harriet School in Situmbeko area. The facility caters for around 6,000 people. Here, we found a group of women who brought their children for a routine under-5 checkup. They shared with us stories of the difficulties they faced before the supply of power to this rural health center.
Pesa mkabwera kuzanga usiku na mjima anje mzambo pemperera apo mkana mwaimu bakutandizani koni ino kwenzeri vuto mkwala kupereka kutari kukaikisako mafiriji anje tiyamikira panana tetera ko malaiti fonse biriche mushi atugwa kwinda mukujiswa muri kutumbuka kamboga indi tokali kubereha malaiteso obola ukliniki kutumbuka amalaita enza battery amana
Henry Ntitima is among residents happy with improvements in the community because of electricity supply.
I think it's easier now because you have power already in the clinic than where you have to go and buy candles and stuff. I think generators generally improve the security of the health facility here. Yes.
Improved maternal services due to effective power supply has received accolades from the parent ministry.
The maternity annexes are now more appealing to our mothers from the villages, from the communities to come and wait for deliveries at the clinics, because you are now having a mother's shelter which is lit. You are now having a maternity annex which is lit. the little labor ward there, it's lit. And it's appealing to a mother to be in where there is light throughout.
Power lines flowing in the middle of nowhere speaks life to most communities benefiting from rural projects like Kabangalala. It has been seen that electricity supply makes the working environment for healthcare staff more comfortable, thereby enticing them to serve the underserved.
We are happy Pennipher to have power here because one, I will look at staff retention. Most of our people here are happy because they have power in their houses. So my staff are very happy to have power in their houses. And then the other thing is at least our kids are able to watch TV and we are updated with whatever is happening elsewhere.
Storage of critical vaccines and certain medicines in need of refrigeration is now possible at the health center. This has been acknowledged by Michael Manyoni, the officer in charge at Kabangalala Rural Health Center.
There are drugs that require refrigeration. One is vaccines. For vaccines, it needs to be maintained at a certain temperature. So with power, I think the refrigerator is there. And then there are some drugs like ARVs. One of the drugs for pediatric ARV formulation is Keratra. It requires to be kept in a refrigerator. So I think with power, I think we have stocks of such supply drugs.
The need to secure medicines in the right conditions is of interest to M-Pharma.
It's extremely important to have reliable and a reliable electric connection in order to store drugs well, because looking at things like vaccines, for example, cannot be stored at certain temperatures, and so they need a refrigerator. And so these simple things that maybe many people in urban areas take for granted are extremely vital for people's livelihoods in the rural areas.
Better storage of medicines pleases the Ministry of Health.
When you look at the essential medicines and the supply, some of them they need to be stored well at a controlled temperature. We are now able to do that in some of our remote health facilities because now we have power. We can have power-driven refrigerators, for instance, and make sure that we can provide that.
Government is also happy that health worker retention has been enhanced because of electrification.
It has also added value to the retention of health workers. You can imagine all these health workers, most of them they expect when they complete to be working in an environment where they can watch TV, they can play radio, and they can also access certain types of entertainments which their colleagues in town are able to. So having power in those areas, we've seen that so far those facilities which have access to power in the remote and rural parts of the country have become attractive. And you rarely find an empty space of a house there because everyone wants to go there and stay.
The Neighborhood Health Advisory Group in Kabangalala speaks of improved service delivery at their local health center.
It's a very big difference. Looking at the situation, we've improved. In most cases, we've been taking our drugs to some distance places where there is electricity. As at now, that problem has been erased out. And as a result, most of the staff are happy with the area because of having the power.
Many believe that Zambia can electrify more rural areas in view of the vast natural resources found in different parts of the country. This is why recommendation is made for the use of wind and gas energy options in order to implement a more sustainable electrification methodology.
Eastern province with those hills has got good wind speeds that can at least power simple turbines that can be used for agriculture. So maybe then what we need to have from the integrated approach that is existing, maybe we break it down further to have another approach that looks at provinces specific.
The concept is already on the cards of RIA, as can be seen from the commissioning of a study inclined to the use of wind energy on the islands of Lunga in Luapula province.
We have commissioned a study with the University of Zambia, and we are exploring the possibility of generating electricity on Lunga district. And right now the indications are that there is quite a lot of potential for us to actually use wind to generate electricity. And with the report, if the study started in February somewhere and is going to be concluded in February next year. And with the positive results, we might set up a hybrid of electricity generation on Lunga district.
Vice President Inonge Wina is aware that life can be hard without efficient power supply. Mrs. Wina officiated the commissioning of an electrification project in Dwampa, Western Province, a development she expects will result in enhanced economic activities in the area.
I encourage you to engage in productive uses of electricity so that you improve your levels of income and add to the growth of the national economy. I therefore task the provincial and district administrations to ensure that small and medium-scale enterprises and commercial investments are promoted in the district.
The same can be said for Mwense, which was recently toured by the Minister of Energy. Locals acknowledge transformation of their lives.
Imolaita kuchita tukwetia mambo ya kupangira laita nimita tukwetempia kuchite light so ulo batuletera malaita we cyari bafevu no mwandi ncyayitwangukira ko mukuberenga na mukumwena ko fie mungande fio telefone kumona
pali inonshita abantu kuchaja amafoni kiri cyanguka munganda mulebo olubuto kwingira mo kutuchaba fe cyanguka no kufa fio nsefi alefwaya pali inonshita abantu abakweteko ifilimbe fya kwatama kaya kupwisha amabwe nomba bali fe cyanguko kutira kuti babo mfye filimbe fya lekana.
Other than use of electricity for the simplified way of life for people residing in rural parts of Zambia, projections place increased economic activities in the country, largely driven by the electrification of rural areas.
With more electricity taken to the rural areas, we are going to see a shift in terms of how our men and women in the rural areas actually contributing to the national cake as a whole. So we definitely see increased activities, but all that is premised on accessibility of electricity that should be taken to the rural areas themselves.
It is anticipated that the transformation of Zambia into a middle-income country by 2030 will be catalyzed by rural electrification, resulting in more entrepreneurship activities. The increased production opportunities in rural areas is expected to impact the general way of life of Zambians living in these locations, thus increasing income generation at household level. However, for this to be done, more deliberate funding and partnership options will need to be forged to actualize the dream of having 51% of rural areas lit. This is where we conclude this week's presentation of News in Depth, where we've been looking at the progress Zambia has made in the Rural Electrification Program. We do hope that you found the program informative. Join us next week for yet another interesting News in Depth program. I've been your presenter, Pennipher, saying goodbye and compliments of the season.